Hello everybody, so this video is entitled Straight Closed. Are the markets uninvestable? What to do? And perhaps a caveat to this video is I need a break because this is, first of all, who could have foreseen that? A lot of people could have foreseen that. But then why did we make such a big deal last week about this good news? Because there is no good news on the Middle East front. Kobasi later here talking about that the IRGC now closed to all vessels. Traffic is now shut again in the Strait of Hormuz. The whole thing lasted about 3 days. The agreement lasted about 3 days. At this point, it seems like the 7-day delays, the Taco Tuesday delay, as they call them, the Tuesday delays, at this point, it seemed like they last longer than an actual signed agreement. And this is very unfortunate, really. All the media is reporting it. The markets are closed right now. I can't imagine what's going to happen Monday. The problem is we can't predict. Could be good, could be bad. We don't know. There's going to be more tweets. There's going to be more tweets today, more tweets tomorrow, more denial, more agreements. There's going to be more of everything. So it's the short term, the whiplash is going to continue, and that whiplash just scares people. I want to quote Kobasi later again, posting this a few minutes after that post that the media is reporting that Strait of Hormuz is closed. He posted that too. Last week was a good week. The market was very hopeful. A lot of money came back into the market. Liquidity was flowing back to the market. People were investing back in the market. And then we get this. So our market uninvestable, I feel like since 1010 we've had a lot of breakage in the market. And here's the thing. It's like if we get this solved again, there could be something else. That's what I've always said on this channel. For example, Greenland, the Greenland situation, I'm not so sure that is resolved. At one point, you could have one tweet that could trigger again a major sell-off. So I'm not even sure the market are at least investable on the day-to-day. The indices, I think, are okay. Investing in the indices and not following the indices, not following them, just living your life and buying a broad index fund, well, I think it's a possibility that it's a way to stay invested. But for the stock picker like myself, this is an extremely annoying market to invest in. For somebody who tries to comment on stocks and try to make sense of stock price movements, it's very annoying to invest, because if you really think about it, a lot of companies are the same stock price they were 5 or 6 years ago. The business is 5 times as big, 3 times as big. You have businesses that have grown in size 3 to 5 times that are still the same price, because we haven't had 6 months without some crazy headlines who bring correlations to one, and small caps are more affected, much more than the indices, because the indices have perpetual flow from retirees and from all sorts of index buyers, that Jack Buckle popularized. Anyways, my channel is big on Bitcoin, for example, and Bitcoin, of course, is always the thing open on the weekend, and these headlines always fall on the weekend. When I saw this news, I didn't check the price of Bitcoin. Like, in my view, it was very obvious that the price of Bitcoin should have been down on this, especially given how historically it's traded very poorly to Middle East headlines. Historically, Bitcoin has traded very poorly in Middle East headlines because there is an exchange that's located in Abu Dhabi who has a lot of impact on Bitcoin's price. For some reason, the price went up this time. It's random. If there's no pattern, for some reason the price went up this time. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy. I'm not so sure it's going to hold on Monday. If we don't get a good news on this front and some sort of a resolution, which I'm sure we're going to get something, if we don't get that, Monday's open is going to be random again. And that's my main complaint. Since 10/10 of 2025, all of these moves have been extremely random. They've been much more random than anything before. And so I don't like that at all. So what am I doing? Well, I'm doing what I'm going to continue to do. I'm staying on the sidelines until Sans comes back. The people on my Patreon know I've made a few moves, but they've been very shy moves, very, very few moves. And if I didn't have this channel, by the way, I would probably close the apps. I would probably close social media. And, and they always call for everything to go crash another 50% or 70%. And I would probably have a good summer and go in the forest and come back in September or something. What is it that makes sense? What can we do when the market is becoming so random? Well, AI has walked. And frankly, I don't like to be a top buyer. I think Micron, I think SK Hynix, I think a lot of these Marvell, a lot of these AI stocks have gotten ahead of itself. But I like Nvidia, and I think Nvidia is still very cheap. I think Nvidia is quite cheap. So Nvidia could be a way. What about TLT? Well, on this channel my stance on bonds. You know my stance on the platinum coin and the credit worthiness of the fiscal situation of the government, and how scary I would consider it to lend to the government. But unfortunately, if you look at it over a short term, if the situation in the Middle East is unresolved, the rates are gonna go up. If the rates are gonna go up again, that means risk assets are not gonna do well. That means Bitcoin is technically not going to do well. A lot of risk assets are just going to be trading way down, and it's going to be the yield assets that are going to be doing much better. Hence, TLT is supposed to be doing much better in an environment, and sure enough, the yields have been going up. I can't imagine what the odds of rate cuts look like right now. They must be less than zero. That's not possible, but you know what I mean. At this point, if this continues, we may get a rate hike in July. So this is very unfortunate, because Hormuz reopening was the catalyst that we needed. Oil was dropping really nicely. Inflation was going to come down as a result of oil. We would have had potential rate cuts. It would have been good for risk assets and the like. And it seems like we're not getting that, or worse than not getting that. It seems that we don't know what we're getting. That's the problem. That's the uncertainty. We don't know what we're getting. Like, if you tell me Hormuz is going to be closed for the next 5 years, I can make a plan. But we don't know. That's the big issue. So this has been an enormously difficult for stock pickers market, because correlation goes to 1. And correlation goes to 1, and it impacts disproportionately small cap stocks. AI has been doing well, but there's no guarantee that the market is not going to have a freak out on AI. You may remember DeepSeek last year. Do you remember DeepSeek last year? Right? A Chinese model came out, and all the AI stocks crashed for like 2 weeks. But that was also a pretty hard to explain situation. If you go back to DeepSeek, the DeepSeek moment last year, pretty hard to explain. Nvidia fell to like $80 or something. So that could happen too, right? What if you have a new AI model that comes out that handles memory differently? Like, I don't know, some university publishes a paper on how to deal with memory in LLMs in a whole new novel way, and then maybe all of a sudden Micron crashes because memory all of a sudden is handled differently. There could be all sorts of things that happen to AI. So there's a lot of risk. I see a lot of risk. And I see this risk not necessarily because of the direction that this is going. I think the market can adapt to anything. I think companies can adapt to anything. The problem is that they don't know how they can adapt if we don't know what's going on. Right? That's the same issue as with the tariff situation. It was changing every day. Companies could not adapt to it because they were changing every day. If this changes every day, how can company adapt to it? Like, how can an oil company decide, okay, this is going to last 5 years, so I'm going to triple down and invest in the US or invest in Venezuela? How can a company decide that? How can the Middle East decide to triple down on building a pipeline if maybe they just stop the projects of a pipeline because they realize, hey, it just reopened? This just makes decision-making enormously hard. So what's the solution? So I don't think leaving the markets is the solution over the long run, and I'm definitely not leaving the markets. And I don't want to buy bonds. It's not something that I would ever want to do. So I'm going to stick to my risk assets. I'm going to stick to my risk assets, and over time, I think they will do fine. But if this volatility, if you can't handle, nobody can be blamed to moving to cash. Like if you can't handle this volatility, the market will grow number. The market will grow numb at some point to the Middle East headlines. At some point, the Middle East headlines will not have an impact on the market. At some point. We're not there yet, because this thing is 3 months old. So we're not there yet. This will take time. But at some point, the market will grow numb to these headlines, even if it stays closed. And by the way, you may know that there is a conflict in Eastern Europe that is still unresolved and has been going on for many years. And the market grew numb to these headlines. And back then, the market was not numb to these headlines. Back then, these headlines were a big deal, you may remember. It also impacted the gas market, right? The natural gas market. Do you remember that whole thing? The market resolved itself, and it eventually grew numb to what's going on in Europe, in Eastern Europe. I think it will grow numb to this at some point, but that's going to take time. And so the only solution, unfortunately, is wait. Hence, that beautiful AI-generated picture of the forest, which is what I'm planning on doing more often this summer. I'm planning on doing this more often this summer. Is the solution taking the summer off? That's the solution. That's the real solution I'm leaning towards. Deleting the investing apps and just taking the summer off. How about that? Wouldn't that be a good solution instead of having to follow all of these crazy headlines, which may or may not be true? like this is the market will grow numb to this eventually, but we need to stop putting it back on the table. Anyways, hopefully this was helpful. This is not investment advice. This is not financial advice ever on this channel. This is only entertainment, not high quality entertainment today, I'm afraid. Please please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful walk.